The stories of Zelda games have always fittingly come across as legends, a tale of a stoic, dauntless hero gallantly facing down the machinations of whatever evil threatens his homeland. They tell the tale of a myth that will be passed down through the ages and echo throughout the halls of history. What makes Wind Waker's story so special is that it comes across as more of a fairy tale. Of course, my perception of the narrative is skewed by the cheery, vibrant presentation of the game, but there are still storytelling techniques that bring across a far more light-hearted tone than anything else in the franchise. The main thing that differentiates Wind Waker from other 3D Zeldas is the use of comedy in the game, more specifically, slapstick. Now, I won't lie to you and say that my sides were bursting every time something silly occurred, as I'm a hard man to make laugh. But what was incredibly endearing to me is how the comedy served as a unique characterization to this version of Link. He's expressive, he's got a personality, and like anyone with a personality, that forms attachment and feelings towards that character, no matter how bad those feelings may be. I'd take 100 Navi and Phis over the Breath of the Wild Link any day. And now I have to give credit to Wind Waker as the second game in history that I've played to make a compelling and well done silent protagonist after Persona 5. But to go more into Link's character, what I like about him specifically is that he's more of a character and less of an avatar, case in point his sister. Most Links go on the quest out of an obligation to save a princess they've never met before in their lives, Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild notwithstanding. Still, even in those games, the relationships feel so one-sided, Breath of the Wild especially, since it feels like Link is simply fulfilling his duty of being the princess's personal guard, and very rarely feels like a genuine friend. In just the opening scene of Wind Waker, there's already a clear relationship dynamic established between Ariel and Link, of a bright, enthusiastic younger sibling and an exasperated but loving older brother. It's an adorable relationship that immediately makes me want to preserve and protect it. So it makes sense as to why Link, a character with often little to no experience fighting, wants to set out into the unknown world and find her. It's not just Ariel. Link has a grandmother who raised both him and his sister, and it becomes very apparent that she's delirious with worry over her missing grandchild. For the first time in the franchise, Outset Island feels like a home where our protagonist has lived his entire life. He's come to know the residents and care for them, so when his sleepy hometown is upended, it's a really emotional moment when he has to leave it and restore it to its former tranquility. Another reason I love this version of Link is because he makes friends because of who he is as a character. Other Zelda NPCs fawn over this mute elf boy. After all, he's the legendary hero, and everyone loves him because he's so great. Wind Waker Link isn't some great hero, he's just a regular kid trying to save his sister, so everyone he befriends does so with no strings attached, like Medli. Medli is a kind girl who doesn't know or see Link as some legendary pig demon slayer, although that does make me question why she immediately asks Link for a favour like every other NPC. Medli, ironically, is a very grounded character. She's exceptionally doubtful of herself, but never cowardly. Medli feels like an actual friend Link made. The only other character in the franchise I can think to compare her to is Saria. Both of these two are the only characters who like and possibly love Link for who he is, rather than the hero he's destined to be. A quick edit in here, I forgot to mention Mipha, totally slipped my mind. Unlike Saria, Medli is actually a believable friend, because the Link in Ocarina of Time is one face painting away from becoming a mime. I suppose we should talk a bit more about Ocarina of Time, because Wind Waker sure likes to. I actually love how self-referential this game is to Ocarina, because we finally get to see the in-world effect of a previous Link's journey. How an adventure we went on became a legend. I love knowing that I had a hand in creating a tradition that was passed down for hundreds of years. I also adore seeing the consequences of my actions, and how the Ocarina Link abandoned, well, that's not fair, he left his timeline in order to be a child again, and left no one to protect Hyrule when Ganon reared his ginger head again. This is fantastic lore, as a character I played as pretty much influenced every aspect of this world. It fully realizes all of the metaphorical and literal seeds planted in Ocarina of Time. But Ocarina of Time's influence is also my most significant criticism of Wind Waker, as the story structure of Wind Waker is almost identical to Ocarina. First, we gather the 3 MacGuffin stones based off of a goddess, to open up a sacred place that gives us the Master Sword, but first we have to travel to some temples and awaken sages in order to gain the power to defeat Ganondorf, as we climb his tower and stab him through the head. I get that Link is inspired by the Ocarina Link, but did the narrative design have to be? I guess it doesn't matter. Every Zelda game has you gathering an arbitrary number of MacGuffins, and I do enjoy when it's a set of 2 MacGuffins, rather than a long list like in Link's Awakening. But so help me God, if I have to awaken one more sage in Tears of the Kingdom, I'm going to impale myself on my life-sized Master Sword. Like other Zelda games, I tend to enjoy the first half of the game much more than the second one, mainly because the first half of the games have dungeons that are diegetically built into the world, rather than a formula of ancient temples that don't feel like they belong, and the first half of Wind Waker is the more exciting part of the game. The last thing I want to talk about is the Triforce quest. Now, this quest is rightfully hated, and if I had to play this game on the GameCube, I might very well have given up right at the end and scrapped the whole video. But as much as I completely loathe this part of the game, I begrudgingly admit that it kinda had to be there, but not to the extent that it was. As I've said before, this Link is just a normal kid with no destiny or anything. So unlike the other Links, he has to prove himself worthy of the Triforce. He can't just be born with it and need to awaken it like everyone else, he has to earn it. I do suppose that the more grueling the trial, the more worthy you would be of receiving the Triforce, but we're earning the Triforce of courage here, not patience. So I guess I have to be in the middle of this absolute pacing, grinding cuckoo shit. The Wind Waker is a story unlike any of the Zeldas before or after it. It sports the best main character in the franchise by a country mile, and has a unique and exuberant tone to match. It does owe a little bit too much to Ocarina of Time. Still, I love that the Wind Waker isn't a legend. It's a fairy tale.